Good morning, everyone. Thank you for joining us for the Safe Clearwater Virtual Open House. This is for segment 1, which is 10th Avenue to Arthur Street. My name is Holly Logan, and I'm the Public Involvement Coordinator for this project. We're going to begin this morning by doing some team introductions. To my right, we have Lisa Schauer from McKay Esposito, Ryan Durham, Project Manager from the City of Kennewick. We have Brent Turley from the Transpo Group. And we have John Pascal from the Transpo Group. And then Derek Smith with McKay Esposito. So here shortly we will begin recording our presentation this morning. Therefore, we'll be holding any questions until the end of the presentation, at which point we will make it available to you to ask questions of the group. So we'll turn on audio at that time. In the meantime, you do have a chat function available at the bottom of your menu there, so you can type in questions that we will also address at the end of the presentation. Also, upon completion of the webinar, you will be prompted to complete a survey, and we would encourage you to complete that survey. It should just take 2 to 3 minutes, and that we would gather some additional information from you would be great. So at this time, we will have Mr. Ryan Durham give us a little bit of background information on the project.
All right. Well, on behalf of the city, we really appreciate you dialing in and listening to this, and also seeing the presentation. Just kind of give you, again, a little refresher on the background as far as where we're at in this process and how did we get to this point. Back in 2012, the city approached the state by applying for a grant through the safety grant system through the state. It's a federal grant, and we received the grant back in 2012 for about $2.1 million. And so this grant is to help with some of the major improvements, safety concerns that we have on Clearwater. And one of the major concerns we were looking at is all the intersections and the accesses along Clearwater, mainly between Columbia Center Boulevard and to about 395. So one of the things that we wanted to address, and we've seen in the past through accident reports, is that we saw an increase of traffic-related accidents, not only with vehicles but also with pedestrians. So we had a major concern regarding that, and so we needed to address those issues. And so we approached looking at hiring consultants to take care of and get their expertise and get their information, analyze the issues along Clearwater. And so we ended up hiring Transpo Group, who's the lead agency, and also along with Transpo Group we have McKay Esposito, who's handling all the public involvement. And so you probably have had an opportunity to speak with a lot of representatives from McKay Esposito. So today is really important because we want to get your feedback and the information from you regarding the final concepts. And today we have John Pascal, who's going to go over some of the traffic-related studies. And I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to John.
Okay. Thanks, Ryan. Do we want to touch on schedule?
Yeah, let's go ahead and real quick touch on project schedule. Right now, we started back in July, and you can kind of see the progression already on the schedule calendar. Right now, we're March 2014, and this is our third open house, our final open house. And so the next step is that in April is to meet with council, update council on the project itself, and really it's just going to be a workshop. And then eventually, we will go to council to get the access management plan, which Transpo will develop, and that opportunity, council will adopt that plan. So that's kind of where we're at in the schedule process. And then after the adoption, we're going to move into then phase 2, which you saw on the last screen. If you can move back, Holly, thank you. Sorry, I'm kind of off on my presentation here. Sorry about that. So we're looking at, right now you can see phase 2, and that is primarily design and right-of-way acquisition. So we'll be, after council has looked at and approved the access management plan, then we'll lead into design and right-of-way. And then once we have design and right-of-way completed, then we'll move into construction. Now in construction, we have a set of priorities. We're going to look at the highest priorities for construction first. So some of those priorities probably won't get done with the allotted money that we've been given. And that allotted money is about $1.2 million for construction. So as time comes, our goal is to complete all priorities and get Clearwater a lot safer. And as for now, we'll go ahead and turn it over to John Pascal with Transco Group.
Yeah, thank you, Ryan. So for the benefit of those joining us right now and those that will be joining us in the days and weeks ahead by viewing this presentation online, I do want to give a little bit of background about where we've been and how we got to where we are today. And again, the study area is a 5.5-mile segment corridor length from US 395 to Leslie Road. And it includes a number of major intersections, a lot of commercial and residential driveways. But I would say that the overall intention of the study was to focus on safety issues, and based upon our analysis, a lot of that was occurring between Columbia Center Boulevard east to 395. So a lot of focus has been on that segment of the corridor. But the project itself was also to consider the future development along the corridor, and therefore we've also paid attention to areas that could develop, making sure that the corridor and those access points were constructed in a way that that prevented additional safety issues from occurring in the future. So we did a comprehensive safety analysis. Many folks are aware of the safety issues and the number of collisions that have occurred along the corridor over the past. We looked at the last 6 years of data, really not just that there was a lot of crashes, but what types of crashes there were, where those crashes were occurring, and trying to really pick apart and analyze what were the causes and whether or not there were any engineering solutions that could be introduced to address some of those collisions. We looked at the collision types, which mainly involved rear-end collisions, cars running into the back of running into the car in front of them, essentially. Right angle and approach turns, and these are essentially cars either turning into driveways or turning out of driveways and being hit by cars along the corridor. We looked at traffic volumes. We looked at the operations of the major intersections. We collected a lot of data with the city supporting us. We looked at daily volumes, how those volumes fluctuate throughout the day, and then we looked at peak hour volumes at the intersections, recognizing that there is congestion that's seen today at particular times of the day. We also surveyed the entire corridor. We looked at the driveway access points. We looked at things such as how are driveways designed today? Do they meet typical design standards in terms of width and throat length or and other geometric features to make sure that vehicles could get in and out easily, but also that there were adequate pedestrian facilities along the corridor. We looked at how close those driveways were to intersections. We looked at sight distance issues, the nature of the crashes at each of the driveways, and whether or not there was opportunities for consolidation of driveways and or shared access arrangements. Public involvement was a critical component of this project, and we focused quite a lot of time on this task. We have compiled a database of almost 1,000 stakeholders. This database tracks all comments that we receive through the website, through email, through phone conversations, through direct conversations with both businesses and property owners and residents. Our team has walked the corridor many times, over 30,000 steps. We have reached out to priority stakeholders, is what I would call those stakeholders that might be most impacted by the improvements that we've identified. We've set up meetings and conference calls with these stakeholders to review the preliminary plans and then to seek their direct comment so that we can make sure that we're incorporating their issues, their concerns, and find a win-win situation for everyone, but still address the safety issues that have been identified. We've tried really hard to broadcast our messages and our meetings widely so that folks know that they're occurring and have an opportunity to participate. We have a website dedicated to the project where we post all the materials there for folks to download. They also can provide comments to the website, which we, again, inventory and respond to. We've gotten a lot of media coverage, which is good, both newspaper articles and TV coverage. And we've had a fair number of visitors to our website, which has been great. So now to talk specifically about how, where we're at and the improvements that we've more or less, I would call, draft final. I'm going to have Brent Turley describe those improvements to you and describe how we've incorporated some of the comments that we've heard throughout this process. Brent.
All right. Thanks. Thanks, John, for that introduction. So this webinar, we are focused on the western side of the corridor, and as you can see here, we have 3 different focused areas. We have the 10th Avenue area on the far west side, the Columbia Center Boulevard area, and then the Arthur Street area. The areas to the east will be covered in webinars later this afternoon and morning. So what we will be discussing at each of these areas, just a quick outline is, we will kind of talk a little bit about the issues that have been there, just review that, talk about some of the earlier concepts that we've discussed with stakeholders and the feedback that we got, and then also the draft final versions. So first, we're going to start with Arthur. So we're going to start on the eastern end and then move back. From Arthur to the east, one of the areas that is within this section is, just to back up a little bit, one of the areas in this section is Edison. I'm going to actually go back to the map. We heard a lot of comments about projects at Edison, and we actually had some draft projects, concepts there. However, when we talked to stakeholders and also talked with the city, many of the needs of that corridor are already being addressed with the Edison Street project. So as far as this, the Clearwater project, we're not proposing any significant projects, and that's why it's not showing up as an emphasis area at this time. So the first area we're going to start with is Arthur Street. And Arthur Street is one of the places that most of the stakeholders, general stakeholders and specific property owners in the area have mentioned that is a high priority and a critical area. And the reason for that is the fact that it's so near a school, and you get a lot of school kids crossing at the intersection of Arthur and Clearwater. There's also bus stops on either side, so even non-students are crossing at this location to access the transit system. There's quite a few driveways in the area as well that further complicate issues in the area. So of all the major intersections along the corridor, Arthur is actually in the top 4 as far as accidents. So one of the project that is being shown right now is the draft final project. What in the past, we had come to the public with 2 separate concepts for this intersection. One concept had this intersection being a signal with a new 4th leg to the south. The other concept was much like this concept, where it had a pedestrian crossing with no signal. However, there was a driveway to the south. When we talked to the different stakeholders involved, one of the things that became clear was most people felt like because of the pedestrian crossing needs and the traffic the needs in the area, that a signal concept would actually be the preferred scenario up between those two. When we looked at some of the traffic warrants in the area, the traffic signal wasn't technically warranted, and so what we wanted to do was create a solution where we could do an interim non-signal solution, and then in the future a signal would be the long-term, the option for this intersection. So that's the comments that we received. So what you're seeing here is basically an interim solution until a signal would be warranted at this location based off of traffic volumes. And so what this solution would include was we wanted to improve both the pedestrian crossing environment for the kids and transit riders. We also wanted to improve the traffic operations for the people coming from Arthur. And I'll address both of those individually. First, for the people, for the traffic coming from Arthur southbound, there's two improvements for those traffic people. The first improvement, and first and foremost, is actually moving the transit stop to a pull-out location. Right now, the transit stop is right within the traffic, and it becomes a big sight distance hazard. And so people trying to make a left out or even a right can't see around the bus, and so that becomes a traffic issue. The other thing is providing a dedicated area for left-turning vehicles to enter that doesn't conflict with anybody else, and that would allow traffic to make the first stage to get to the center without any conflict with other turning vehicles, and then they can join the traffic flow.
Brent, could you describe what the red
Yes.
markings are?
The red markings here would be a raised concrete curbing. So people would not be able to travel across to this, and so so people traveling south would be able to go south and then travel to the east. This would prohibit people from this driveway traffic making left turns out of this driveway. However, we heard from the stakeholders on the south side that they would be okay with that, especially since they do have access to the next street to the west to be able to access out to the east. So that's how traffic is benefited with this interim solution. From a pedestrian perspective, we would be putting a pedestrian crossing on the west side of the intersection, and traffic would have to stop at these stop bars away from the intersection to allow safe sight lines for these pedestrians. And then one critical component is there would actually be overhead lights that would flash, and they're called rapid flash beacons, that would flash when pedestrians are crossing. And these would be pedestrian actuated, meaning there'd be buttons on either side that anybody that needs to cross would be able to hit those buttons and activate those lights, and then they would be able to cross. So it would be a high visibility measure so that drivers would know that they need to stop because pedestrians are crossing at this time. So that is this concept.
Do you want to talk about rank?
Oh, and as far as at the top of, you'll notice that there is two pieces of information. One is the cost of the project, and when we talk about the other projects, you'll also see the cost up here. That cost is the design and construction of it, and that will play into Ryan mentioned that there's a certain amount of money for projects to happen, and the higher the rank of the projects will allow those projects to happen sooner, maybe even as soon as next summer, spring 2015. And when you see the ranking up here, that's ranking, and we'll discuss this a little bit later in the presentation, basically tells which projects would likely go first versus other projects.
I'd like to add in, Brent, on those priorities, they'll be based off of obviously Transco's recommendations, and also based off our traffic engineer, John Deskins, and he'll present that to council. Council then approve that. So in the rankings, some of them are a little bit higher in cost. Even though we only have 1.2 million, we're going to try to see if we can cover as much as we can with that 1.2 million. So some of the higher cost ones might not happen. So you'll see that throughout this webinar, and also throughout if you're signed up for the next two. So I just wanted to add that in. So I appreciate that, Brent.
And as far as this interim solution, a traffic signal actually is a little bit higher cost, and so this interim solution that you're seeing here is a relatively lower cost project, and so would likely be one of the early ones to be constructed. All right, so let's move on to the Columbia Center, or the Columbia Center area. Now, in the Columbia Center area, we have, just as a background on accidents, the Columbia Center intersection itself had the highest number of accidents. However, this is also during a time when this intersection was actually been improved, and so I think many of these accidents have been mitigated with the recent improvements at this intersection. There's also some sight distance issues along this corridor and some accidents to the east of this intersection. So we've got these were the issues in this area. When we talked to we had two concepts for this area in the past. The first concept is what you see here, where there's some concrete curbing called C-curbing to help control the access along here. The other concept was combining this driveway to the two driveways on the north side into one common driveway. When we talked to stakeholders at this location, the majority of them landed on the C-curbing option that you see here for a variety of reasons, one of them being cost. It's a relatively cheap project in the greater scheme of things. So what this project would do is what we're trying to do is improve so the access control, the safety from the access in this section. So two of the things. The first thing, this driveway right here would be a full access driveway, meaning anybody on Clearwater could access this driveway. But one issue is the sign is in a poor location and it provides poor sight distance. So this project would help move this sign further out of the sight lines of drivers, so they can actually see the oncoming traffic before they make the decision to move out. The other driveway is this right-in only driveway is currently being used not as a right turn only, but actually people are exiting from it, and people are actually making westbound left into it, which was not the idea of how this was built in the first place. So what this concrete curbing is meant to do is to reinforce that it is a right turn only into this intersection, and also to distinguish it from this double left turn lane at the major intersection itself. So these black lines, that would be painted lines on the concrete, and then these red lines would actually be a concrete curb. And so that would help people from mistakenly turning where they really shouldn't be turning. That's Project 110. The next project is a project at the intersection itself. And this was more of a capacity project at the intersection. When we looked at the accidents, there was quite a few accidents at the intersection, and a lot of those were rear end, and so we were looking at exploring capacity improvements. This particular project looks at restriping the lanes on the north side, the north leg of the intersection, and by doing that, we would probably need to widen the south end of the intersection. Now, when we went through the rankings of this project, of all the projects, this actually came out as the very last at the bottom, ranked 13 of 13. So this project will probably not happen in the near term. It probably would be a later option. And as such, this intersection was recently improved, and over time, this project really is meant as a placeholder to reevaluate things in a few years to understand how traffic volumes have changed over time, and there may be some other capacity improvement at this intersection in the future. The next area is at 10th Avenue, and John mentioned earlier that when we were looking at the corridor, we were really trying to look not only now at what problems are occurring now, but also trying to avoid problems in the future. And so 10th Avenue, there's not a whole lot going on at this intersection right now, but in the future, there's likely to be quite a bit going on because there's plenty of developable land in the area. And so we wanted to head off any potential problems in the future. Right now, there are some sight distance issues along the roadway. There is no center turn lane, so anybody that are making westbound left turns are actually stuck in the middle of the road, which becomes a safety concern. So that is one of the issues, safety issues that are currently exist on the corridor. Project 112 is an option of two different concepts, and what will be pushed forward is still to be discussed based off of further discussions with the city and stakeholders in the area. But generally, it is trying to highlight that there will be some type of traffic control to improve it. Right now, it's just a single stop sign. There'll need to be some type of a roundabout or a traffic signal. The roundabout concept would work in the current location where the intersection is. The current alignment of where 10th Avenue connects to Clearwater Avenue. And we would, because of how roundabout works, we would not need to widen the roadway to provide a center two-way left turn lane. So that would allow this roundabout to exist in the existing intersection location. The alternative location actually shifts the intersection location about 400 feet further to the east. And what that would do is provide a much longer throat and much longer roadway between Clearwater and where 10th Avenue currently is for queue storage and future volume increases along the corridor. So it would provide, what this does is this concept really allows for future growth in the area and future traffic volume growth. It also this area already has a two-way left turn, center two-way left turn lane, so there would be less widening needed in this location than if the signal were put in the original intersection location. So there's many benefits to this location. It fits the area better and improves things in the future and heads off many potential problems. Project 113 is a related project, but it could actually happen all by itself. Like we've mentioned, there's no two-way left turn lane along here, so anybody using this local street here called Sunnyvale, it's a dangerous location because we have a 45-mile-an-hour speed limit. Sometimes they're going much faster than that through this corridor. There's no center turn lane. What we wanted to do is have this local street actually connect out to 10th Avenue. And that's a safer location for this local street to connect out into. And then as the 10th Avenue intersection improves, they would have a much safer way to get to Clearwater Avenue. So that is the current project. And this ranking is 10th out of 13. So this slide is meant to just highlight, we actually looked at all the driveways along the corridor, and we actually put some numbers to all of them and ranked them with different factors and came out with some hot spots. And so as part of the plan, we'll actually have a list of driveways that would need some attention. And as the adjacent property owner adjacent properties redevelop or change in some way, those would be the opportunities to make some improvements. There's also the city has identified some traffic signal improvements or lighting improvements to improve some safety. There's also discussions for mid-block crossings along the corridor, much like what we discussed for Arthur, where there'd be some overhead lights and similar high visibility measures.
And then potentially some changes to bus stops, right, or locations of bus stops as well.
Correct. So there might be some consolidation of bus stops or moving of the bus stops. In general, we wouldn't be putting bus pullouts everywhere. We will just put bus pullouts where it would improve safety and in some locations traffic flow. But in general, what we were looking for is trying to consolidate bus stops where it makes the most sense based off of users and from a safety perspective.
And we are also working with transit too on these concepts. So they have also been working with us. So the final thing I wanted to discuss is the project prioritization. So like I mentioned, there's some ranking of these projects. So how we came up with these rankings was from all the work that we've done to date. We looked at the safety of the corridor, and those areas that had safety problems ranked higher. We looked at operations along the corridor, and those projects that would improve operations had a higher score. We also looked at the public comments and stakeholder comments, and if the stakeholders were generally 100% behind something, that ranked higher. If it was kind of a mixed bag, then that ranks a little bit lower. And then costs, obviously, if it's a lower cost, that was ranked higher, or if it was a much higher cost, it didn't receive as high a score. So I've marked on the left side here some red arrows. This shows the different projects that we discussed today. The highest ranked one was Arthur because it improved. There was a lot of significant safety issues, and it improved some operations, and there was a lot of public support for doing things at Arthur. So that was the one that rose to the top of the rankings. The next one is the C curbing at Columbia Center Boulevard. That one's a relatively cost-effective way to improve safety in that area. The remaining projects ranked near the bottom, and so they would be probably later, a project that would happen later in time, and didn't check all the boxes that we thought that a safety project needed to check to happen sooner. So that wraps up the discussion around the projects themselves, and also discussion about the project prioritization. And I'm going to turn the time over to Lisa, who will talk about what's next.
We will be putting together the Safety Corridor Plan, which is also known as the Access Management Plan document. We will be identifying which of those projects move into Phase 2 and Phase 3 with the city. And we anticipate, as Ryan mentioned, meeting with the City Council for a workshop April 22nd. What we'd really like to have is any feedback from you by the end of this month. I think that you've heard from the full project team that your feedback has impacted how we've prioritized these projects, and in some cases taken the priority projects that were first identified, and some have fallen off of that priority list, like Edison. So please provide us with your thoughts and whether or not you feel like this is going to impact your business or your residents. We'd like to hear that by the end of the month. Then after we report out to the City Council the end of April, then we anticipate later this spring full City Council approval of the document. And this will be that guiding roadmap for any future development. So while we want to create as much safety, resolve as many safety challenges as we can along the corridor, we also want to look at future development and ensure that it's aligned with this particular plan that we've spent the last 9 months gathering input and preparing these conceptual designs. So with that, I'm going to turn the webinar back over to Holly, who will facilitate any questions that you might have. Again, we've appreciated your feedback over the last 9 months, and we look forward to finalizing this plan with your participation.
Thank you, Lisa. And just to reiterate, some ways that you can provide feedback is via questions today, or you can visit our project website at safeclearwateravenue.com and fill out the form there. And you also see our hotline number here. You're welcome to call the hotline and leave a message with your feedback.